Welcome in, everyone. We are so glad to have you joining us for today's deep dive.
Yeah, really glad to be here.
I want you to take a quick look at the calendar right now. Today is Tuesday, March 3, 2026.
Which is just wild.
It really is. We are steadily approaching the end of Q1, and if you're sitting at your desk right now feeling like the year is already running away from you.
You are definitely far from alone.
Exactly. You are not alone. In fact, right now is the absolute perfect time to take a step back and, really evaluate your yearly strategies before the momentum of the spring completely takes over, because otherwise you're just constantly playing catch up.
It really is the ideal moment for a strategic pause. I mean, if you wait until mid-year to realize your approach needs a pivot, you're not just losing time. You're likely already dealing with the fallout of misaligned priorities.
Which is exactly why we are tackling this today. We've been looking through a highly relevant piece of research from January. It's titled Resilient Governance, Leading the 2026 GRC Evolution.
It's a fantastic read.
It really is. And the core mission of our deep dive today is to extract how IT security, risk, and compliance professionals can actually stay ahead of the curve this year.
Right.
And more importantly, how you can pull that off without feeling completely overwhelmed by the barrage of new regulations, evolving cyber threats, and those seemingly never-ending audit cycles.
Yeah, we have to acknowledge right out of the gate that GRC governance, risk, and compliance is an objectively heavy lift.
Oh, absolutely.
The professionals in this space are carrying the weight of massive organizational responsibility. And the stakeholder expectations, they're just coming from every possible direction.
Yeah.
But the perspective we really want to bring to you today is that 2026 does not have to be an endless grind. There's a very real opportunity here for a strategic, sustainable, and growth-minded approach.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with the very first major pitfall identified for the year. The source calls it the Q1 priority check-in, or really the trap of trying to do it all.
Right, the do-it-all trap.
Yeah, because one of the most common mistakes GRC leaders make in January is getting that burst of New Year energy, looking at a massive list of obligations, and just trying to boil the ocean all at once.
And spreading your attention across dozens of different compliance activities right at the start of the year, it just dilutes your impact to the point of total ineffectiveness.
Yeah.
The research challenges us to stop and ask a few foundational questions. I'd actually encourage you, listening right now, to ask yourself, what truly matters most to your organization today? And critically, what specific risks have the potential to materially harm your business in the near term?
Right, but let's play devil's advocate for a second here.
Sure.
If I'm a compliance officer, I don't necessarily get to choose what matters. I'm staring at this massive alphabet soup of obligations, right?
The alphabet soup is real.
It is. I've got NIST's cybersecurity framework requirements. I'm trying to maintain our ISO standards. I have SOC 2 audits to prove we're managing customer data properly, and PCI DSS rules because we process payment cards.
All of it.
Giving all of those equal weight on January 1st is exhausting. But if I go to my board and say, hey, I'm ignoring 90% of our compliance checklist to focus on a few things, I might get fired. How do we actually justify narrowing that focus?
Well, you don't ignore the baseline requirements. That's key. But you absolutely have to distinguish between business-as-usual maintenance and strategic prioritization.
Okay.
That brings us to a major tactical shift for 2026. The mandate here is to identify your top 3 GRC priorities for Q1.
Just 3.
Just 3. And you don't pick them based on which audit is annoying you the most.
Yeah.
Use a strict risk-based approach tied directly to your overarching business objectives.
So it has to tie back to the business.
Exactly. If the company's primary goal this quarter is expanding into the European market, then data residency and GDPR compliance become a top 3 priority. If a priority doesn't trace back to a core business goal or mitigate material risk like a critical vulnerability in your supply chain, it simply does not get top billing.
So it's about shifting the narrative from we need to check all these boxes to these 3 initiatives are critical to protecting our revenue and growth this quarter.
Precisely.
That makes sense. It gives you permission to pace your efforts on the rest. But, if we are actually limiting our heavy strategic focus to just 3 priorities, that begs the question, how do we handle the sheer volume of that day-to-day workload? The routine stuff doesn't just vanish.
No, it doesn't vanish, but the way we manage it has to fundamentally change.
Yeah.
In 2026, the age of manual GRC management is over.
Thank goodness.
Right. Relying on legacy tools for complex environments is a massive liability now.
I've always thought about it this way. Using spreadsheets for control management and risk assessments in a modern enterprise is literally like trying to bail water out of a sinking ship using a teaspoon.
There's a very accurate visual.
Right. You are working incredibly hard, your arm is falling off, but you are not keeping the ship afloat because the tool is fundamentally incapable of matching the scale of the water coming in. Actually, I remember early in my career losing about 6 hours of sleep the night before a major compliance audit because a master Excel file with all our map controls just corrupted.
Oh, no. That is a very common, very painful reality for a lot of professionals. What's fascinating here is the strategic pivot toward dedicated, dynamic GRC platforms.
Right.
We're finally moving away from static documents hidden in shared drives and toward platforms that offer sophisticated workflow automation, dynamic reporting dashboards, and unified control libraries.
Automation gets thrown around as a buzzword constantly, though. What does that actually mean in the trenches of GRC? Are we talking about AI completely taking over the risk assessments, or is it just a slightly better filing system?
It's much more functional than a buzzword, and it's not about AI replacing the human element, at least not yet. Think about the massive time sink of duplication.
Okay.
If you have a password complexity policy, that single policy might fulfill a requirement for SOC2, a requirement for ISO 27001, and a specific NIST control.
Oh, yeah.
In a manual spreadsheet environment, a team member is manually updating 3 different tabs, uploading the exact same screenshot of evidence 3 different times, and tracking 3 different expiration dates.
Which is just mind-numbing work.
Exactly. With a modernized platform, you map that control once. The system understands that the single piece of evidence satisfies all 3 frameworks simultaneously.
That's brilliant.
Furthermore, these platforms automate the evidence collection itself. Instead of tapping a developer on the shoulder every 90 days and begging them for a screenshot of a server configuration,
Which they always hate.
always. The GRC platform integrates directly with your cloud environment and pulls that configuration data automatically.
That is huge. That alone removes so much friction between security teams and engineering teams, because nobody likes being chased down for audit evidence. The outcome we are looking for here is less admin, more insight. If I'm not spending 40 hours a month chasing screenshots and fixing broken Excel formulas, I can actually sit back, look at the dashboard, and realize, hey, we have a systemic vulnerability in how we onboard third-party vendors.
Exactly. You've moved from data entry to strategic analysis. And when you free up that kind of intellectual capital, you have to reinvest it. This requires a shift in how professionals approach their own skill development.
Which is critical, because the threat landscape does not care about your internal audit schedule.
Not at all.
If we are talking about building a continuous learning cadence, we really need to address the elephant in the room. Corporate training is usually terrible.
It really is.
We have to stop relying on those mandatory annual painfully dry HR webinars where you just click next until you get the certificate.
Passive corporate learning is entirely insufficient for this field. The threat vectors change daily. A compliance video reported in 2024 is not going to help you secure an environment against a zero-day exploit today. You have to take control of your own proactive intelligence gathering.
So what does a proactive intelligence gathering routine actually look like? It can't just be read more news.
No, it needs to be curated and scheduled. First, you need to be actively monitoring industry-leading cybersecurity and compliance channels. The analysis points to resources like the GRC Pros blog for tactical updates.
Okay, blogs.
Second, you need to get out of your organizational silo. Commit to attending at least one high-level virtual or in-person conference this year to see how other enterprises are solving the exact same problems you are facing.
That's a great point.
And third, engage in specialized professional networks like targeted LinkedIn groups where actual practitioners are debating best practices, not just sharing marketing material.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's really about time blocking, isn't it? Blocking out dedicated, fiercely defended time every single month for deep dive skill building.
It is the only way it happens.
Yeah.
This isn't just skimming an article over your morning coffee. This is blocking 2 hours on a Friday afternoon to deconstruct a new regulatory update, study emerging ransomware trends, or unpack a new framework.
Right.
Committing to that monthly cadence is what separates the forward-thinking professionals from the ones who are just treading water.
And there is a fantastic tactical recommendation here in the source. Choose one specific GRC domain to deeply specialize in this year. Become the absolute subject matter expert on your team for one emerging area.
Yes.
The landscape is shifting toward complex issues like supply chain risk, data privacy regulations, and AI governance.
AI governance is a perfect example. Right now, corporate environments are like the Wild West when it comes to employees using large language
Probably
models.
completely.
If you dedicate a few hours every month to understanding how to govern and secure AI deployments, your strategic value to your organization by the end of 2026 will be immense. You become the go-to person for the hardest problem the company is facing.
Okay, I see that. However, knowing all this and actually implementing it in a resistant corporate culture are two entirely different things. Here's where it gets really interesting, because we need to talk about the psychology of small wins and why prioritizing iteration over perfection is the only way to survive.
Massive sweeping transformations almost always fail in GRC. They look great on a slide deck in January, but by March, the business pushes back because the new protocols are slowing down operations. Successful programs scale gradually.
And our people love a massive transformation. It feels productive to say, we are overhauling our entire security posture. Why is the all-or-nothing approach so dangerous?
Because of change management friction. If you try to roll out a massive zero-trust architecture across the entire enterprise in one quarter, the business will grind to a halt, employees will find workarounds, and you will be viewed as a blocker. Instead, the focus should be on highly targeted surgical improvements.
Okay,
Implement exactly one new control this quarter.
just one.
Just one meaningful one. For example, rolling out multi-factor authentication for a specific highly sensitive legacy system that has been ignored for years. That is a tangible win you can actually achieve and measure.
Okay, I can see how that builds momentum. What else?
Update one high-risk policy, but do it with actual stakeholder input. Don't write a data handling policy in a vacuum and email it out.
Right, nobody reads those.
Exactly. Sit down with the head of marketing, understand how they actually use customer data, and write a policy that secures the data without breaking their workflow. Next, launch a targeted awareness campaign.
Not just a generic poster in the break room.
Exactly. Not a Be Safe Online poster, but a highly specific initiative on spotting spear phishing emails aimed at the finance department.
That makes a lot of sense. You are solving real, immediate problems instead of theoretical ones.
Exactly. And finally, mature one specific area of your risk register. Business continuity planning is a great place to start. Don't try to map out every single disaster scenario. Focus strictly on what happens if your primary cloud provider goes down for 48 hours.
Keep it scoped.
By scoping these projects so tightly, you guarantee completion and you demonstrate continuous value.
Normalizing those small wins creates a culture of continuous improvement, and you don't burn out your team trying to boil the ocean. But if we pull this off, if we focus our priorities, automate the busy work, continuously learn, and rack up these small wins, how does that change the way the rest of the company views us? Because let's be honest, compliance is usually seen as the department of no.
This raises an important question. How do you transition from being the department of checklists and audits to being positioned as a true business enabler? Because in 2026, if you're only seen as a cost center that enforces rules, your influence is severely capped.
Segmenting away from the technical side for a moment, this is really a communication challenge. If you walk into a boardroom and start talking exclusively about missing controls, unpatched servers, and audit findings, you can practically see the executive's eyes glaze over.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to translate risk into the language they actually care about.
You have to fundamentally change your vocabulary. Executives are evaluated on specific metrics, and you need to frame your data around those metrics. You must articulate your GRC efforts in terms of their impact on operations, their impact on the brand's reputation, their impact on revenue targets, and their impact on customer trust.
So instead of going to the board and saying, we failed a compliance check on our database encryption, which sounds like an IT problem, you say, we have a vulnerability here that risks a major breach of customer trust, which would heavily disrupt our Q3 revenue targets and potentially trigger regulatory fines. Suddenly, it's not an IT problem, it's a massive business risk, and every executive in the room is leaning in.
That is the exact paradigm shift required. You are no longer reporting on technical failures. You are advising on strategic protection and brand value.
I love that.
And when you present this information, abandon the 50-page spreadsheets. Leadership needs a visual representation of the landscape. Use simple risk heat maps and clear dashboard summaries. Show them the red zones, explain the business impact, and provide the clear iterative steps your team is taking to turn those red zones green.
And you can't do that in a silo. The guidance emphasizes that GRC is a team sport. If you are going to be a business enabler, You need allies. You need to be building bridges with finance, operations, and legal.
Imagine the difference in a budget meeting. If the CFO and the head of legal are actively advocating for your new GRC software platform.
That would be amazing.
Right, because you've taken the time to show them exactly how it protects their specific domains from liability and financial loss. You embed resilience into the corporate culture by making your goals their goals.
That is a phenomenal strategy. And there's a great tactical tip for maintaining that visibility, too. Setting up quarterly GRC briefings.
Don't wait for an annual review or a post-breach post-mortem to talk to leadership. Use brief quarterly check-ins to systematically demonstrate how your team is actively reducing risk while simultaneously supporting the company's growth initiatives. Show them the tangible return on investment of a mature program.
So what does this all mean? When we look at the totality of this approach for 2026, the ultimate takeaway for you, the listener, as you navigate the rest of Q1, is that GRC this year is fundamentally about resilience, not perfection.
Exactly.
It is about building a program that breathes and evolves alongside the business, a program that empowers your stakeholders and enables leadership to make better, faster, safer decisions. It is decidedly not about trying to forcefully control everything in a rigid, inflexible way.
To succeed without burning out, you must ruthlessly prioritize your top 3 material risks. You must aggressively embrace automation to eliminate the repetitive admin work. You need to commit to a proactive, continuous learning cadence. And above all, you have to celebrate the steady, incremental progress that compounds over time.
The small wins.
Yes. The overarching shift in 2026 is moving GRC from being merely a reactive function of compliance to being the foundation of proactive corporate confidence.
From compliance to confidence. That is exactly the mindset shift we all need.
Before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Very.
We talked about the critical need to specialize in emerging domains like AI governance, and we also talked heavily about the necessity of relying on automated platforms to manage our risk and evidence collection.
Right.
So if we are actively automating our GRC processes to save time, and AI systems are becoming exponentially more complex, how long until the automated platforms we rely on to monitor our risk require their own complex AI governance frameworks? Ultimately, in a highly automated future, who audits the automated auditor?
Wow. Who audits the automated auditor? That is a brilliant and slightly terrifying brain bender to end on. Definitely something for all of you to chew on as you head back to your desks and look at your own tech stacks. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Take a breath, set those top 3 focused intentions for the rest of Q1, and get out there and lead the charge in your own organizations. We will catch you next time.